Hello everyone, I am ADP's Annotations, and this is my first video. It's going to be kind of a how to annotate as well as kind of an example with the article cigarettes and climate change. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge that I am in no way, shape, or form an expert in this field. In fact, this account's purpose is primarily for me to find motivation to get my work done in my own high school English class.
Now, there's one thing in particular that I really don't want to overlook in this video, and it's that this is a really time-consuming process. To annotate properly and really get the right ideas of it, it takes a long time. These are videos that I have that are 4 times speed, and they're time-lapsed, just so I could fit it into this video. And this is only a snippet of what I actually did. So this is a long process, and I don't want to overlook that, because that's one of the hardest bits for annotating, and I've actually suffered from it myself, and that's also why it takes so long for me to do it as well. So how exactly does one go about annotating an article like Cigarettes and Climate Change by Emmett Renzen? So there isn't exactly a definite answer to this question because it differs from person to person. I personally, at the beginning of my annotations, will make a mental list of things that I need to look for throughout the article. For example, I'm always going to look for the thesis. This is going to be what the author is trying to say throughout the point. I'm always looking for the thesis every single time, and actually I get quite excited when I find it. Additionally, I'll think about things that we've been learning in class. Recently, we've learned about anecdotes, and personal anecdotes specifically. In the first sentence of this article, it says, quote, "I am a smoker and I am in denial." First sentence of the article. This is a personal anecdote, and it stuck out to me immediately. And this is something that I immediately annotated as an anecdote, which is important to note because it helps me gain my understanding in class. I made a pretty big deal about this thing called a thesis, but how exactly do we get there? So the author, Emmett Renzen, clearly knows a lot about cigarettes. He's addicted to them. He says it outright. Fortunately, in this article, he's fairly explicit with the thesis. We have to find it. So to find it, we have to look at the structure of the article. For this particular article, it's going to be a comparison. Clearly, because he knows a lot about cigarettes and the addiction to them, he uses that and compares it to climate change. You can see it in the title. It's called Cigarettes and Climate Change. The two don't have much in common. And so when you read that title, you're thinking, what do they have in common? That's what you're thinking when you read this, and then you hear that he's a smoker, and you immediately make the connection, you're waiting for the climate change bit. Here, he describes the addiction as something that he knows is there, knows is bad for him, knows he should change, but he won't until the future. And the future, he doesn't know how long that will be. He compares this to the climate change crisis. People know that they have an issue of climate change, know they should do something, know it is bad for them, but they put it off for the future. And the future is unknown. They don't know when that will be. He compares the two things to get people's attention with the change. So the author ends up bringing up the psychology of coping with things that are so dangerous that we know in a way that just blocks it out entirely. The brain will process things that we know are super, super bad for us by simply just getting rid of them from our conscious. They're so big that we'll stress about them so much that it's not useful to even think about. So it takes it out and we don't worry about it. This comes up in the thesis. When I found this, I underlined it so hard with so much excitement that I have gone and put a hole in my paper. I literally had a reaction of shock after I did that. However, the thesis appears, as it says, that this specific kind of uncertain futurism is what enables our denial. The fact that we don't know what specific time period we will be fixing climate change, or we will be fixing our smoking addiction, that allows us to have this uncertain date of when we're going to fix a big problem that we know is going to be likely the end of us as we know it. So our brain does what our brain will do and just blocks it out, as they mentioned with the psychology bit.
So here it is. We have found a clear thesis. It's that the unknown future creates unknown due dates in our mind, and that allows us for high-stake tasks to be put aside by our brain in order to cope for the fact that it is quite dangerous for us. But what does that do for us? It helps understand the purpose of why this article was written. The author, he writes this to change this narrative. He changes it to make people do the things that they have to do and allow themselves to be comfortable to get the hard stuff done. And this comes when he says we must be able to look the monster in the eyes and do so every day. It will be unbearable at first. In self-defense, we might even find it obnoxious. He's acknowledging, yes, it's going to be difficult to get this hard stuff done. It's going to be challenging, but we need to get it done. We need to face it with our own whole selves and get the stuff done. And this is the point of the article entirely. And now all we need to know is, have we checked all the words that we don't know? Have we summarized all the paragraphs? Have we missed anything important? I reread this after I finished annotating it. I made sure, is there anything here that I'm missing entirely? And then, yeah, we're done. So now that we're done annotating our article, I'm going to give you a quick 1 to 2 minute summary on what exactly it is that we are supposed to be doing to annotate an article like this. So, Cigarettes and Climate Change by Emmett Renzen was our example. Now, what we're always going to be looking for is to summarize our paragraphs, kind of things that we've been going on in class, or if you're not in class, things that you are particularly open to looking for. And then words you're not really familiar with. But to the thesis, you're going to need to look at the structure of the argument. So, in this particular article, our argument is comparing two different things that have little relation to one another, yet still have similar structure. Now, these two things are obviously going to be a smoking addiction and people's unwillingness to act upon global warming and its crisis. Now, he does this by creating a few parallels. The first parallel is both the acknowledgement of the addiction of smoking, as well as the acknowledgement of the issue of climate change. Another one would be the acknowledgement that it's bad for you to smoke, and the acknowledgement that it is bad for you to have climate change occur. Another one is the acknowledgement that you know you should do something about this. This is something in which a course of action is required. To fix it, it won't just go away naturally. And then finally, it parallels the big point. It parallels the point that you don't have a specific due date to do this. There is no necessary time that you would know to stop smoking before you die or stop climate change before you die. There is no set time that you would need to do this. And so, a man that doesn't have a lot of personal experience in climate change, but has strong opinions on it, is able to write such an argument because of his own personal experience in cigarettes. And so we get that thesis in that structure of the comparison between the two. And it's a call to action. We have to know the purpose of it. This is trying to change the idea that we can just put off things like this. And so, with that in mind,
that is going to wrap up my first video. That's a fairly basic overview of how to annotate an article. That is how I do it. As I mentioned before, it is done in many different ways. But I would hope that you enjoy this video, and I'm sure a new one will be coming out soon. Thank you, Ms. Ferguson, for assigning such a brilliant article. I will see you guys in the next one.